I was sitting at my desk, surrounded by the usual chaos of a school counselor's office, piles of papers, sticky notes clinging to every surface, and the faint smell of coffee lingering in the air. My day had been the typical blend of teenage angst and administrative tasks when I noticed the envelope. It was plain, unmarked, and sitting atop the stack of college brochures like it had just appeared out of thin air. Curiosity got the better of me. I tore it open, expecting some mundane request or perhaps another reminder about the upcoming parent-teacher night. Instead, I found a typed letter, the words cold and clinical, yet somehow burning into my brain. Your husband, Grant Lawson, is not who you think he is. He's been unfaithful and involved in illegal activities at his restaurant. Be careful. I read it twice, 3 times, each word slicing deeper into the fabric of my reality. My name is Eliza, and at that moment I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, the ground beneath me crumbling away. I shoved the letter into my bag, my hands trembling. The bell rang, signaling the end of the school day, and I mechanically went through the motions of seeing the last few students out. All the while, my mind was racing, trying to piece together the implications of what I had just read. Grant and I had been married for 8 years. He was charming, sure, with that easy smile and those ambitious plans for his restaurant. But lately, there had been late nights, vague explanations, and a growing distance between us that I had chalked up to the pressures of his business. Now I was questioning everything. The drive home was a blur. I parked in our driveway and just sat there, gripping the steering wheel like it was the only thing keeping me tethered to reality. The house was quiet, the kind of quiet that felt heavy, like it was waiting for something to happen. I finally got out of the car and walked inside, the letter still tucked away in my bag, a secret burning a hole through the fabric. I needed to talk to someone who could help me make sense of this mess. Ruby, my best friend, was the first person who came to mind. She had a knack for seeing through the bullshit and telling it like it was. I dialed her number, my heart pounding in my chest. Hey, Ruby. Can you come over? I need to talk. Sure thing, Eliza. What's up? You sound off. I'll tell you when you get here. Just please hurry. While I waited, I tried to distract myself by tidying up the living room, but every little thing seemed to remind me of Grant. The framed photo from our wedding, the souvenirs from our travels, even the stupid throw blanket he insisted we needed. It all felt like a lie now. Ruby arrived about 15 minutes later, her expression a mix of concern and curiosity. She took one look at me and knew something was seriously wrong. Okay, Spill. What's going on? I handed her the letter, watching her eyes scan the words. Her face shifted from confusion to anger, then to a kind of steely determination that I had always admired about her. Eliza, this is serious. What are you going to do? I don't know, Ruby. I feel like my whole life is a lie. I need to find out if this is true, but I don't even know where to start. First things first, you can't confront Grant until you have proof. If there's one thing I've learned from all those crime shows, it's that you need evidence. Her attempt at humor made me smile, albeit weakly. Yeah, I suppose you're right. Listen, Eliza, whatever happens, I'm here for you. We'll figure this out together. Her words were a lifeline, a reminder that I wasn't alone in this. But as much as I appreciated her support, I knew that the path ahead was one I had to walk myself. I had to dig deeper, find the truth, and decide what to do with it. As Ruby left, my mind was already racing with possibilities. Who sent the letter? Why now? And, most importantly, how much of it was true? I didn't have the answers yet, but I was determined to find them. The evening stretched on, each tick of the clock a reminder of the confrontation that loomed ahead. I knew I couldn't ignore this, couldn't pretend everything was fine. Not anymore. I lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, the letter's words echoing in my mind. I knew this was just the beginning, that the truth was out there waiting to be uncovered. And I was going to find it, no matter what it took. The next morning, I woke up with a sense of dread hanging over me like a storm cloud. Grant was already gone, his side of the bed cold and untouched, a silent reminder of the growing distance between us. I went through the motions of getting ready, but my mind was elsewhere, tangled up in the implications of that letter. At breakfast, I noticed the little things that had become routine: the empty coffee cup he left on the counter, the way he never seemed to be around for breakfast anymore. I tried to shake off the feeling, focusing instead on the day ahead. But the truth was, the letter had planted a seed of doubt that was quickly taking root. When I got to work, I found it hard to concentrate. My students' problems felt trivial compared to the chaos brewing in my own life. During lunch, I called Mabel, Grant's mother. I needed her wisdom, her quiet strength. She answered on the second ring, her voice warm and welcoming. "Eliza, dear, how are you?" "I'm managing," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "Can we talk? I could really use your advice." "Of course, come by after work. I'll make us some tea." The rest of the day dragged on, each minute a reminder of the conversation I was dreading with Grant. By the time I arrived at Mabel's, I was a bundle of nerves. She greeted me with a hug, her presence instantly calming. As we sat in her cozy kitchen, the smell of chamomile filling the air, I felt a bit of the tension ease. Mabel had that effect on people. "I've noticed Grant's been distant," I began, choosing my words carefully. "And I got this letter. Says he's been unfaithful and involved in some shady business. I don't know what to believe." Mabel's eyes softened with understanding. "Eliza, I've seen this before. Grant's father was much the same, charming, ambitious, but always hiding something. Trust your instincts." Her words were both comforting and unsettling. I had always admired Mabel's ability to see through the facade, but hearing her confirm my fears was like a punch to the gut. "Do you think it's true?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "I don't know, dear. But I do know that secrets have a way of coming out. You need to be prepared for whatever you find." Her advice echoed in my mind as I drove home. The house was empty, Grant still at the restaurant, or so he said. I sat on the couch, my thoughts a tangled mess, when Ruby called. "Hey, how are you holding up?" she asked, her voice a lifeline. "I'm okay, I think. I talked to Mabel. She told me to trust my instincts." "Smart woman. So, what's your next move?" "I need to confront him, but I want to be sure first. I need proof." "Then let's get you some. I know a guy, Sam Brooks, a private investigator. He's discreet and good at what he does." I hesitated, the idea of spying on Grant feeling both necessary and invasive. But the need for answers outweighed my reservations. "Okay, let's do it." The decision felt like a weight lifted off my shoulders, a step toward clarity in the fog of uncertainty. That evening, when Grant finally came home, I watched him closely, searching for signs of guilt in his easy smile and charming demeanor. "How was your day?" he asked, casually, as if everything was perfectly normal. "Busy, you know how it is," I replied, keeping my tone light, pretending I didn't notice the way he avoided eye contact. As we sat down for dinner, the silence between us was deafening. I wanted to scream, to demand answers, but instead I played along, letting the charade continue for just a little longer. Later, as I lay in bed, Grant asleep beside me, I couldn't help but wonder how well I truly knew the man I had married. Thought was both terrifying and liberating, pushing me further down this path of discovery. The next few days passed in a blur of routine and subterfuge. I met with Sam, who promised to dig into Grant's affairs discreetly. Each day, I juggled the demands of my job with the growing tension at home, the uncertainty gnawing at me like a persistent itch. And then, just when I thought I was beginning to understand the scope of my situation, Mabel called with a revelation that sent my mind spinning. "Eliza, there's something you should know. Grant's father, he had another family. I didn't find out until it was too late. I'm telling you this because I see the same patterns in Grant." Her words were a bombshell, adding a new layer of complexity to an already tangled web. Seemed the past was repeating itself, and I was caught in the middle, struggling to break free. As I hung up the phone, I realized that the foundation of my life was more fractured than I had ever imagined. But with each new revelation, my resolve hardened. I was determined to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. The air felt heavy as I drove to meet Sam Brooks. Private investigator had called earlier, his voice as steady and assured as ever, telling me he had some information. My stomach churned with a mix of dread and anticipation. I had asked for the truth, and now it was time to face it. I met Sam at a small, unassuming cafe on the edge of town. He was already seated at a corner table, a folder in front of him and a cup of black coffee in hand. He nodded as I approached, gesturing for me to sit. "Eliza," he greeted, his tone professional yet kind. "I've got some updates for you." I nodded, trying to keep my nerves in check. "Okay, let's hear it." Sam opened the folder, revealing a series of photographs and documents. "I follow Grant for the past week. He's been meeting with several individuals who have questionable backgrounds. It seems his restaurant is a front for some illegal dealings." My heart sank as I looked at the evidence. There was no denying it now. The man I thought I knew was involved in something dark and dangerous. "And the affairs?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Sam hesitated, then handed me a photo. It showed Grant with a woman I didn't recognize, their body language intimate and familiar. "I'm sorry, Eliza. This isn't easy to see." I felt a cold numbness spread through me, a mix of betrayal and anger. I had suspected, but seeing it confirmed was a different kind of pain. "What do I do now?" I asked, more to myself than to Sam. "That's up to you. But whatever you decide, you should be prepared. People like Grant don't always react well when cornered." I nodded, my mind racing. I needed to confront Grant, but I also needed to protect myself. And there was the matter of Mabel's revelation about Grant's father. It was all too much, yet I couldn't ignore it. As I left the cafe, the weight of the truth settled on my shoulders. I drove home, the photographs and documents burning a hole in my bag, a constant reminder of the storm brewing in my life. When I got home, Grant was there, sitting on the couch, his expression unreadable. Tension in the room was palpable as I walked in, my resolve hardening with each step. "Eliza, we need to talk," he said, his voice calm but with an edge of something I couldn't quite place. "Yeah, we do," I replied, setting my bag down with a deliberate thud. He looked at me, his eyes searching mine for a clue to my thoughts. "I've been meaning to tell you about some changes at the restaurant," he began, his words careful and measured. "Changes? Is that what you call it?" I shot back, unable to keep the bitterness from my voice. He flinched, a crack in his calm facade. "What do you mean?" I took a deep breath, pulling out the photos and documents, laying them on the table between us. "I know Grant. I know about the affairs, the illegal activities. Everything." His face paled, his eyes darting to the evidence, then back to me. "Eliza, I can explain." "Explain? You've been lying to me, to everyone. How can you possibly explain this?" His charm faltered, replaced by a desperation I hadn't seen before. "I was trying to fix things, to make something of myself. It just got out of hand." "Out of hand?" I repeated, incredulous. "You've put us all at risk, Grant. This isn't just about you anymore." He stood, running a hand through his hair, his frustration evident. "I didn't want to drag you into this. I thought I could handle it." "Well, you were wrong," I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside me. "And now we have to deal with the consequences." The room fell silent, the weight of our unspoken fears hanging between us. I felt a mix of anger and sadness, the betrayal cutting deeper than I had imagined. Suddenly, the doorbell rang, breaking the tension. I opened it to find Ruby standing there, her expression a mix of concern and determination. "Hey, I thought you might need some backup," she said, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. Her presence was a balm, a reminder that I wasn't alone in this fight. Grant looked between us, realizing that the facade he had carefully constructed was crumbling, and there was no going back. As the evening wore on, the reality of the situation settled in. I knew the path ahead was fraught with challenges, but I also knew I had the strength to face them. This was about more than just uncovering the truth. It was about reclaiming my life, my sense of justice. And as I stood there, surrounded by the remnants of my shattered reality, I felt a flicker of hope. This was just the beginning, and I was ready to see it through to the end. The days following my confrontation with Grant felt like I was living in a haze. Each morning, I woke up hoping it had all been a nightmare, only to find the evidence staring back at me from its hiding place in my closet. I could feel the weight of it pressing down on me, urging me to make a decision. One afternoon, as I sat in my office at the school, my phone buzzed with a message from Mabel. "Can we talk?" "It's important," it read. Her words sent a jolt of anxiety through me. I quickly replied, arranging to meet her at her house after work. When I arrived, Mabel was waiting for me on the porch, her expression serious yet welcoming. She led me inside, and we settled into the living room, the familiar comfort of her home providing a small respite from the chaos of my thoughts. "Eliza, I've been thinking about everything," she began, her voice gentle yet firm. "There's something else I need to tell you." I braced myself, knowing that whatever she was about to reveal could change everything once again. "Grant's father wasn't just deceitful with his affairs," Mabel continued, her eyes filled with a mix of regret and resolve. "He was involved in some very dangerous circles. I didn't know until it was too late, and I fear Grant may have followed in his footsteps more closely than I realized." Her words hit me like a tidal wave, the implications crashing over me. The web of lies and deceit was far deeper than I had imagined, and it seemed Grant was entangled in it more than I could have known. "Why didn't you tell me this before?" I asked, trying to keep the accusation out of my voice. "I hoped it wasn't true," Mabel admitted, her eyes downcast. "But seeing how things have unfolded, I can't ignore it any longer. I'm telling you now because I don't want you to make the same mistakes I did." Her confession was both a warning and a plea, urging me to take action before it was too late. I nodded, my mind racing with the possibilities. I needed to protect myself and my future, but how could I do that when the ground beneath me kept shifting? As I left Mabel's house, my phone buzzed again, this time with a call from Ruby. "Hey, I've got something you need to see," she said, her voice tinged with urgency. "Meet me at the park." I agreed, curiosity and apprehension battling within me. When I arrived, Ruby was already there, pacing near the swings, her camera bag slung over her shoulder. "What's going on?" I asked, joining her. She handed me her camera, showing me a series of photos she had taken over the past few days. They showed Grant meeting with a group of men outside his restaurant, their expressions serious and their gestures animated. "I've been keeping an eye on him," Ruby explained, her voice low. "These guys aren't your typical business partners. Something's definitely up." I studied the photos, the pieces of the puzzle clicking into place. It was clear that whatever Grant was involved in, it was bigger than I had anticipated. "Thank you, Ruby," I said, feeling a surge of gratitude for her loyalty and determination. "I don't know what I'd do without you." "We're in this together, Eliza," she replied, her eyes fierce with determination. "Now, what's the plan?" Paused, considering my options. I needed to confront Grant again, but this time with a clearer understanding of the stakes. And I needed to make sure I was protected both physically and legally. As I sat in the park watching the children play, I felt a shift within me. This wasn't just about uncovering the truth anymore. It was about reclaiming my life and ensuring a safe future for myself and the child I might one day have. The thought brought a sense of clarity, a determination to see this through to the end. That evening, I returned home to find Grant waiting for me, his expression guarded. Tension between us crackled like static electricity, unspoken words hanging heavy in the air. "We need to talk," I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside me. "About what?" he replied, his tone defensive. "About the men you've been meeting," I said, watching his reaction closely. His eyes flickered with something I couldn't quite place, fear perhaps, or maybe realization that his secrets were unraveling. "Eliza, it's not what you think," he began, but I cut him off. "Then tell me what it is, Grant. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're in way over your head." He hesitated, the silence stretching between us before finally speaking. I was trying to help the business to make it successful. But things got complicated. Complicated? Echoed, incredulous. Grant, you're putting us all at risk. This isn't just about you anymore. Power dynamics between us had shifted, and for the first time I saw a glimpse of vulnerability in his eyes. It was a small victory, but it fueled my resolve to keep pushing forward, to uncover the full extent of his deceit and protect the life I was fighting to reclaim. The days blurred together as I navigated the chaos Grant had brought into our lives. My mind was a whirlwind of plans and fears, each day a new test of my resolve. Mabel and I had begun documenting everything, a paper trail of deceit and betrayal that we hoped would protect us. But with each passing day, the stakes seemed to rise, the shadows of Grant's actions growing longer and more menacing. One evening, as I sat at the kitchen table, sorting through the documents Mabel and I had gathered, Grant walked in. His presence filled the room, an unspoken tension crackling between us. I could feel his gaze on me, the weight of his scrutiny heavy on my shoulders. "Eliza, we need to talk," he said, his voice a mix of frustration and something else, something darker. I looked up, meeting his eyes with a steady gaze. "About what, Grant? The lies or the danger you've put us in?" He flinched, a flicker of something like guilt crossing his features. "I'm trying to fix it, you know. I'm doing everything I can. Are you?" I challenged, standing up and facing him. "Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're digging us deeper." Grant's jaw tightened, a muscle ticking in his cheek. "You don't understand, Eliza. It's not that simple." "Then make me understand," I replied, my voice rising. "Because all I see are secrets and lies." The silence stretched between us, thick and suffocating. I could see the conflict in his eyes, the war between his ambition and the reality he had created. It was a moment of vulnerability, but it was fleeting, quickly replaced by the defensive mask he wore so well. "I'm handling it," he insisted, his tone firm, but I could hear the cracks forming beneath it. Before I could respond, the doorbell rang, slicing through the tension like a knife. I moved to answer it, finding Ruby on the other side, her expression urgent. "Eliza, we need to talk," she said, glancing past me to where Grant stood. "Now." I nodded, stepping outside with her, the cool evening air a welcome relief from the suffocating tension inside. "What's going on?" I asked, my heart pounding. "I've been digging deeper," Ruby said, her voice low and serious. "And I found something big. Grant's business isn't just a front, it's tied to a network of money laundering. This is serious, Eliza." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut, the implications spinning through my mind. This was bigger than I had imagined, the danger more immediate and real. "What do I do?" I asked, my voice trembling slightly. "We need to act fast," Ruby replied, her determination unwavering. "You have to get out of there, Eliza." "It's not safe." I nodded, the decision crystallizing in my mind. I couldn't stay, not with the threat looming over us. But leaving meant accepting the end of everything I had built with Grant, the life we had shared unraveling like a frayed thread. As I re-entered the house, the gravity of the situation settled over me like a shroud. Grant was still in the kitchen, his back to me as he stared out the window. "I'm leaving," I said, my voice steady despite the fear clawing at my insides. He turned, surprise and disbelief etched on his face. "What? You can't just—" "I can and I will," I interrupted, my resolve firm. "I have to protect myself, Grant. I have to protect our future." His expression shifted, a mix of anger and desperation. "Eliza, please. I can fix this." "No, you can't," I replied, my heart aching with the truth of it. "You've made your choices, and now I have to make mine." The silence that followed was heavy, the finality of my words hanging in the air. I turned away, moving to gather my things, each step a reminder of the life I was leaving behind. As I packed a bag, my mind raced with the possibilities, the uncertainty of the future looming large. But beneath the fear and doubt, there was a flicker of hope, a belief that I could rebuild, that I could find a way forward. With one last look at the home we had shared, I stepped out into the night, the path ahead uncertain but necessary. This was about more than revenge or justice. It was about reclaiming my life, my sense of self, and forging a new path in the face of betrayal. As I drove away, the weight of the past slowly lifted, replaced by a newfound determination. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew I had the strength to face it, to rise above the chaos and carve out a new beginning. I stood in the dimly lit hallway of Mabel's house, the weight of my decision pressing down on me. I had left Grant and everything that tied me to him, but the sense of relief I'd hoped for hadn't come. Instead, I felt adrift, the future an uncertain blur. Mabel sat across from me, her presence a comforting constant in the chaos. "You did the right thing, Eliza," she said softly, her voice a balm to my frayed nerves. "I know," I replied, trying to believe it, but doubt lingered like a shadow. "It's just, what now?" "We keep moving forward," Mabel said, her resolve unwavering. "We protect what's left and rebuild." Her words were reassuring, but the path ahead seemed impossibly daunting. As if sensing my hesitation, Mabel reached for my hand, her grip firm and grounding. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed with a message from Sam Brooks. "Need to see you. Urgent." The words sent a shiver of apprehension through me. I nodded to Mabel and left to meet him, my mind racing with possibilities. Sam was waiting at the cafe, his expression serious. "Eliza, I've uncovered more about Grant's dealings," he said without preamble. "It's worse than we thought. He's deeper into this network than anyone realized." The news hit me like a physical blow, the implications spiraling through my mind. "What does that mean?" I asked, my voice barely steady. "It means you're in more danger than we anticipated. These people don't take kindly to loose ends," Sam explained, his tone grave. I felt the room spin, the walls closing in. The life I'd known was slipping away, replaced by a nightmare I couldn't wake from. "What do I do?" I asked, desperation creeping into my voice. "You need to lie low, stay out of sight until things settle," Sam advised. "And be prepared for anything." I nodded, the reality of my situation settling over me like a shroud. I was in over my head, and the way out seemed impossibly far. As I left the cafe, Ruby called, her voice a lifeline in the storm. "Eliza, I've got a place you can stay. It's safe and no one will find you there." "Thank you, Ruby," I said, my gratitude genuine. "I'll head there now." The drive to the safe house was a blur, my mind replaying Sam's warning over and over. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched, that danger lurked around every corner. By the time I arrived, my nerves were frayed, exhaustion tugging at my edges. The safe house was small and unassuming, tucked away in a quiet neighborhood. Ruby had left the key under the mat, and as I stepped inside, the silence enveloped me. It was a stark contrast to the chaos of my recent days, but the solitude was a balm I desperately needed. As I settled in, I felt the weight of everything pressing down on me. The lies, the danger, the uncertainty of the future. It was all too much. I sank onto the couch, my body trembling with the effort of holding it together. The night stretched on, each tick of the clock a reminder of the precariousness of my situation. I was alone, isolated from the life I had known, and the uncertainty of what lay ahead was suffocating. Then, just as I thought I had reached my breaking point, the phone rang. It was Grant, his voice a mix of anger and desperation. "Eliza, you need to come back. We can fix this." I felt a surge of anger, the audacity of his words igniting something within me. "Fix this? You've put us all in danger, Grant. There's no fixing that." "You don't understand," he insisted, his voice rising. "I can make it right." "No, you can't," I replied, my voice firm. "I'm done, Grant. I'm done with the lies and the danger." The silence on the line was heavy, the finality of my words hanging between us. I hung up, the decision solidifying within me. I couldn't go back, not now. But even as I resolved to move forward, a new fear took root. If Grant couldn't fix this, what would happen next? The uncertainty was a constant companion, whispering fears I couldn't ignore. As the night deepened, I felt the weight of my choices, the path ahead fraught with danger and doubt. But beneath it all, there was a flicker of hope, a belief that I could rise above the chaos, that I could reclaim my life. In the quiet of the safe house, I realized that this was my lowest point, but it was also a turning point. I could let the darkness consume me, or I could fight my way back into the light. And as I lay there, the decision was clear. I would fight. For myself, for my future, and for the life I was determined to rebuild. The safe house was quiet, the only sound the soft ticking of a clock echoing through the dimly lit rooms. I sat at the small kitchen table, the weight of the impending confrontation pressing down on me like a physical force. I knew it was time to face Grant one last time, to put an end to the tangled web of lies and deceit that had ensnared us both. The phone rang, its shrill tones slicing through the silence. I picked it up, my heart pounding in my chest. It was Grant, his voice taut with desperation. "Eliza, we need to talk. Face to face." "Why?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "So you can spin more lies?" "No," he replied, a hint of vulnerability in his tone. "I need to explain. Meet me at the restaurant. Please." I hesitated, the thought of seeing him again filling me with a mix of dread and resolve. But I knew I had to do this, to confront him with everything I had learned. "Fine," I said, my voice firm. "But this is it, Grant. No more games." The drive to the restaurant was tense, my mind a whirlwind of possibilities. I parked a block away, the evening air cool against my skin as I approached the building. The restaurant loomed ahead, its lights casting long shadows on the sidewalk. Inside, the place was empty, the chairs stacked on tables, the air thick with the smell of cleaning products. Grant stood near the bar, his posture tense, eyes shadowed with something I couldn't quite read. "Eliza," he said, his voice a mix of relief and apprehension. "Thank you for coming." "Get to the point, Grant," I replied, crossing my arms to keep from trembling. "I'm tired of your half-truths." He nodded, a flicker of something like regret crossing his features. "I messed up, Eliza. I got in over my head. But it was never supposed to be like this." "Like what?" I challenged, stepping closer. "A front for illegal activities?" "A lie. I thought I could control it," he admitted, his voice cracking. "I wanted to give us everything, but I lost sight of what mattered." His words hung in the air, a confession that was both too late and too little. I felt a surge of anger, the betrayal cutting deeper than I'd expected. "And the affairs?" I asked, my voice cold. "Were they part of your plan too?" Grant flinched, his eyes dropping to the floor. "I was stupid. I thought I needed more, but it was never real." I shook my head, disbelief mingling with frustration. "You risked everything for nothing, Grant. You put us all in danger." "I know," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "But I can fix it. I just need time." "Time?" echoed, incredulous. "You've had time and look where we are." The silence stretched between us, the weight of our choices a chasm neither of us could cross. I could see the desperation in his eyes, the fear of losing everything he'd built, but it was too late for that now. As I turned to leave, something caught my eye, a folder on the bar, its contents spilling out. I picked it up, flipping through the pages, my heart sinking as I realized what it was. Evidence, meticulously documented, of Grant's dealings and the network he was entangled in. "What is this?" I demanded, holding up the folder. "It's everything," Grant replied, his voice resigned. "I was going to turn it over to make things right." I studied him, searching for the truth in his eyes. For the first time, I saw the man he used to be, the one I had fallen in love with, buried beneath layers of ambition and insecurity. "Why now?" I asked, my voice softer, the anger giving way to a weary sadness. "Because I'm tired, Eliza," he said, his shoulders slumping. "Tired of running, of hiding. I want to end this." His confession was unexpected, a twist I hadn't anticipated. I felt a flicker of hope, tempered by the reality of our situation. "Then do it," I said, handing him the folder. "Turn it over and maybe we can find a way out of this mess." Grant nodded, taking the folder with a determined expression. "I will. I promise." As I left the restaurant, the weight of the confrontation lifted slightly, replaced by a cautious optimism. The resolution wasn't perfect, but it was a start, a step towards reclaiming the life we had lost. The themes of justice and redemption had brought us to this point, and as I walked into the night, I realized that the path ahead was still uncertain. But it was one I was ready to face. Confrontation had tested us both, but it had also offered a chance for healing, a chance to rebuild from the ashes of our mistakes. The morning sun filtered through the curtains of Mabel's living room, casting soft patterns across the floor. I sat with her, a cup of tea warming my hands, the air between us filled with a quiet sense of relief. It had been a few weeks since the confrontation with Grant, and though the path ahead was still uncertain, there was a newfound peace in knowing the worst was behind us. Mabel looked at me, her eyes filled with a mix of pride and understanding. "You've come a long way, Eliza," she said softly, her words carrying the weight of our shared journey. "I couldn't have done it without you," I replied, meaning every word. Her support had been a lifeline, guiding me through the storm. We sat in comfortable silence, the bond between us stronger than ever. It was a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, the ability to find strength in the face of adversity. As I sipped my tea, my thoughts drifted to Grant. He had turned over the evidence, and the authorities were now untangling the web he had woven. It was a step towards redemption, a chance for him to make amends, even if it meant facing the consequences of his actions. A knock at the door broke the quiet, and Ruby entered, her presence a burst of energy and warmth. "I brought something for you," she said, handing me a small, wrapped package. I opened it to find a photo album, the pages filled with memories of happier times. It was a reminder of the life I had built, the moments of joy and love that were still worth cherishing. "Thank you, Ruby," I said, touched by her gesture. "This means a lot." "We've been through a lot, but I know you'll come out stronger," she replied, her confidence in me unwavering. As the day unfolded, I felt a sense of closure settling over me. The journey had been tumultuous, but it had also been transformative. I had faced my fears, confronted the truth, and emerged with a clearer sense of who I was and what I wanted. Later, as the afternoon sun dipped below the horizon, I found myself alone in the garden, the cool breeze a gentle reminder of the world's beauty. I placed a hand on my stomach, feeling a flutter of movement, a reminder of the life growing within me. In that moment, I realized that this was the beginning of a new chapter. The themes of justice and protection had guided me through the darkness, and now they would light the way forward. I was no longer defined by the chaos of the past, but by the hope of the future. As I stood there, a lingering question tugged at the edges of my mind. Would Grant truly change? Could he find redemption in the choices he had made? It was a question that would remain unanswered, a reminder that life's complexities often defy simple resolutions. But I knew that whatever happened, I had the strength to face it. I had learned to trust myself, to find courage in vulnerability, and to embrace the unknown with open arms. The journey had tested me in ways I never expected, but it had also revealed a resilience I hadn't known I possessed. And as I looked out at the world, I felt a deep sense of peace, a certainty that I was exactly where I needed to be. With a final glance at the setting sun, I turned and walked back inside, ready to embrace whatever came next. Past was behind me, and the future was a canvas waiting to be painted with the colors of hope and possibility.